Chapter: The Fall of Blackthorn Keep. The dense fog that often blanketed the outskirts of Viridia was beginning to lift, giving way to the first rays of dawn. The city, which had been a hub of activity since the announcement of the impending war, was momentarily silent as anticipation filled the air. All eyes were turned toward the horizon, waiting for the arrival of their final and most crucial allies, the elves. From the dense forests of Elanthar, the elven contingent emerged like shadows given form, their movements graceful and precise. At their forefront were Lord Thalanor, a figure of towering presence and wisdom, and Ilara, his fierce and loyal lieutenant. Their arrival had been long awaited, and the news of their journey had spread quickly through the city, rekindling hope in the hearts of many. King Arik stood at the city's gates, flanked by Bromir and Thargrim, the dwarf leaders who had already pledged their aid to the human cause. As the elves approached, the king could feel the tension ease slightly. Despite their differences in the past, the elves' presence signalled a unity that had rarely been seen in Eldoria's history. "Lord Thalanor," King Arik greeted, his voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "Your arrival strengthens our resolve." Thalanor inclined his head, his piercing gaze meeting Arik's. "We come not out of obligation, but necessity. The darkness threatens us all. Together we must end it." Ilara, standing beside her lord, added, "Our forces are prepared to aid you in any way. We bring skilled archers and potent magic that will prove invaluable in the battles to come." The alliance was solidified with few words, for all knew the gravity of the task ahead. As the elven forces integrated with the human and dwarf armies, the combined strength of the three races was felt throughout Viridia. The arrival of the elves was not just a military reinforcement, but a symbol of hope, a beacon that perhaps the tide could be turned against the dark forces. The royal courtyard, normally a place of calm and reflection, had been transformed into a bustling war camp. Soldiers from every corner of Eldoria had gathered, their armour gleaming in the midday sun. Human knights, dwarven warriors, and elven archers stood side by side, their ranks filled with a quiet determination that spoke louder than any battle cry. King Arik, Bromir, Thargrim, and Lord Thalanor oversaw the final preparations from a raised platform. The sound of hammers on anvils and the murmur of strategists filled the air as each contingent prepared for the march to Blackthorn Keep. The keep, a fortress of dark magic and malevolent power, loomed in the minds of all present as their ultimate destination. "Let it be known," Bromir began, his voice carrying across the courtyard, "that this alliance of men, elves and dwarves is unlike any seen in our time. We stand as one against a common foe, and our unity will be our greatest weapon." Thargrim, his voice rough yet filled with conviction, added, "Our siege engines are ready. The Warhammer Grimstrike will lead the charge. Let the dark forces tremble before our might." Lord Thalanor addressed the elven warriors, his tone calm but resolute. "We have faced many battles, but none as critical as this. Remember our purpose, to protect the balance of this world. Let our arrows fly true and our magic burn bright." The armies were divided into their respective roles. The dwarves would lead the assault with their siege engines and the Warhammer Grimstrike, an ancient weapon capable of breaking the magical barriers that protected Blackthorn Keep. The elves would provide cover with their archers and use their magic to neutralize the enemy's dark sorcery. The human soldiers, led by King Arik, would support both, using their numbers and bravery to press the attack. As the final orders were given, the combined forces began their march. Banners fluttered in the wind, displaying the symbols of the three united races. The journey ahead would be arduous, but the sight of the united army instilled a sense of purpose and camaraderie. They were no longer just separate factions. They were one, bound by a shared goal to rid the world of the encroaching darkness. The journey to Blackthorn Keep. The march to Blackthorn Keep was a test of endurance as much as it was of resolve. The terrain was harsh, with jagged cliffs and dense forests that slowed their progress. Yet, the Alliance pressed on, driven by the knowledge that each step brought them closer to the stronghold of their enemy. The path led through treacherous lands, once fertile and lush, but now tainted by the dark force's influence. The air was thick with an unnatural chill, and the ground beneath their feet seemed to pulse with a malevolent energy. Every soldier, whether human, dwarf, or elf, could feel the presence of the dark magic emanating from the distant keep. Despite the ominous surroundings, the Alliance moved with a sense of unity that had been absent in the earlier days of the campaign. Dwarves shared their rations with humans, elves exchanged stories of ancient battles with their newfound allies, and a bond formed that went beyond mere necessity. As they neared Blackthorn Keep, the terrain grew more foreboding. The once distant silhouette of the stronghold now dominated the skyline, its jagged towers and dark aura a stark contrast to the bright skies above. The keep, surrounded by dense, thorny forests, appeared impenetrable, its walls lined with dark sorcerers and creatures of the night. King Arik called for a halt as they reached the outskirts of the forest that encircled the keep. The commanders gathered once more to refine their strategy. Maps were unfurled, and the final approach was meticulously planned. The forest surrounding the keep is laced with traps and dark enchantments, Ilara warned. We must proceed with caution. Bromir nodded, his expression grim. Our engineers have crafted countermeasures, but we'll need to move quickly and with precision. Any delay could be fatal. Thalanor spoke last, his voice calm but filled with an underlying tension. The darkness is strongest here. We must be prepared for anything. The keep's defences will test every ounce of our strength and resolve. With the plan finalised, the Alliance prepared to move forward. The atmosphere was thick with anticipation, each soldier knowing that the journey's end would bring either victory or devastation. As they entered the shadowy forest, the first signs of the enemy's presence became evident. Twisted roots that moved of their own accord, eerie whispers carried by the wind, and the ever-present feeling of being watched. But there was no turning back. The Alliance pressed on, their resolve hardening with each step. The final battle was at hand, and they would not be found wanting. The first clash came swiftly and brutally. As the Alliance emerged from the dark forest, they were met with a barrage of dark magic and arrows from the walls of Blackthorn Keep. The enemy had been waiting, and their ambush was precise and devastating. Many soldiers fell before they had even reached the main gate. King Arik, at the forefront of the human contingent, raised his sword high, rallying his troops despite the onslaught. "Hold your ground! Push forward!" The dwarves, led by Bromir and Thargrim, advanced with their siege engines, but progress was slow. The ground beneath them erupted with magical explosions, and the air was thick with the stench of dark sorcery. The Warhammer Grimstrike was their only hope of breaching the keep, but reaching the gate was proving more difficult than anticipated. From their position in the rear, the elves provided cover fire, their arrows striking true against the dark sorcerers on the walls. However, the magical wards protecting the keep deflected many of their attacks, forcing Ilara and the elven mages to expend more energy breaking through. "We're taking too many losses," Thargrim shouted over the din of battle, his voice filled with frustration. "If we don't reach that gate soon, we'll be overrun." Arik knew he was right. The enemy was relentless, and for every step forward they took, it felt as though they were pushed back two more. The Night Stalkers, ferocious creatures born of darkness, emerged from the shadows wreaking havoc among the ranks. Their speed and strength were unmatched, and it took multiple soldiers to bring down even one. Despite the setbacks, the Alliance did not falter. The dwarves pressed on with the siege engines. The humans fought with a renewed vigour, inspired by their king's courage, and the elves continued their assault from the rear, breaking through the wards bit by bit. In a moment of desperation, Arik called for a direct assault on the gate, knowing that they had no choice but to break through. The Warhammer Grimstrike, wielded by Thargrim, was their only hope of breaching the gate's defences. As the dwarves pushed forward, the rest of the army followed, their movements synchronised by necessity and determination. The assault was brutal, with casualties mounting on both sides. The magical wards flickered under the relentless strikes of the Warhammer, but the gate held. Arik feared that they might not have the strength to continue, that they would be forced to retreat. But then, a sudden shift occurred. A surge of energy from the elven mages disrupted the wards, weakening them just enough for the Warhammer to deliver a final, crushing blow. The gate shuddered, cracked, and finally gave way with a thunderous crash. The path to Blackthorn Keep was open, but the battle was far from over. With the gate shattered, the Alliance surged into Blackthorn Keep, determined to bring an end to the dark forces that had plagued their lands. The interior of the keep was a maze of narrow corridors and dark chambers, each one filled with traps and enemies lying in wait. The battle that ensued was chaotic, each step forward won with blood and sacrifice. King Arik led the charge, his sword gleaming with the blood of his enemies. Bromir and Thargrim were unstoppable forces, their war cries echoing through the halls as they cleaved through the dark creatures that stood in their way. Ilara and the elven rangers moved with deadly precision, their arrows finding their marks in the darkness. Despite their momentum, the Alliance faced fierce resistance. The Night Stalkers were relentless, their savage attacks pushing the soldiers to their limits. The Dark Sorcerers, though fewer in number, unleashed devastating spells that threatened to turn the tide of battle. But the Alliance had come too far to fail. They pressed on, their determination unwavering. Step by step, they fought their way deeper into the keep, their goal clear: destroy the source of the dark magic that powered Blackthorn Keep. At last, they reached the inner sanctum, a vast chamber pulsating with a malevolent energy. In the centre stood a massive pulsating crystal, the heart of the dark magic that had corrupted the land. It radiated power, and its presence was suffocating. "We end this now," Arik declared, his voice filled with resolve. Bromir hefted the Warhammer Grimstrike, and, with a mighty swing, brought it down upon the crystal. The impact sent a shockwave through the chamber, cracking the crystal but not destroying it. The dark magic lashed out in response, throwing the warriors back. But Arik and his allies would not be deterred. They regrouped, and, with a final concerted effort, they struck the crystal again and again, each blow weakening its power. Finally, with a deafening crack, the crystal shattered, its dark energy dissipating into the air. The stronghold's defences crumbled, the dark creatures within losing their strength and cohesion. The Night Stalkers fell where they stood, the sorcerer's spells fizzled out, and the oppressive aura that had filled the keep vanished. The battle was won. Blackthorn Keep lay in ruins, its dark magic vanquished. The cost had been high, but the victory was undeniable. The Alliance, battered and weary, emerged from the stronghold as the sun began to rise. The dawn signalled not just the end of the battle, but the beginning of a new chapter for Eldoria. As King Arik surveyed the battlefield, he knew that while the war was far from over, they had struck a decisive blow against the darkness. The victory at Blackthorn Keep was a turning point, a beacon of hope that would inspire the people of Eldoria to continue their fight for freedom and peace. The road ahead would be long and fraught with challenges, but with the unity and strength displayed at Blackthorn Keep, Arik was confident that they would ultimately prevail. The echoes of battle still reverberated through the hollow halls of Blackthorn Keep as the sun began its slow ascent over the horizon. The once formidable stronghold now lay in ruins, its dark magic shattered, and its monstrous defenders either slain or scattered. A victory had been achieved, but the cost was heavy. King Arik stood on the remnants of the keep's walls, overlooking the battlefield where the allied forces of men, dwarves, and elves had fought together. His armor was battered, his sword notched from countless clashes, but he stood tall, surveying the scene with a mixture of relief and sorrow. The price of victory was etched in the faces of those who had survived, worn, bloodied, yet resolute. Bromir and Thargrim, the dwarven leaders, approached Arik from behind, their heavy footsteps crunching over the debris-strewn ground. Bromir's face was a mask of exhaustion, but his eyes gleamed with pride. "We've done it, lad," Bromir said, his voice rough but tinged with satisfaction. "Blackthorn Keep is ours. The dark forces are broken. For now." Arik nodded, turning to face his allies. "For now, yes. But we've dealt them a blow they won't soon recover from. This victory is a testament to our unity. We fought as one, and we won as one." Thargrim, ever the pragmatist, grunted in agreement. "Aye, but let's not fool ourselves. This war is far from over. The dark forces will regroup, and we must be ready." Lord Thalanor, the elven commander, appeared beside them, his presence as silent as a shadow. His expression was unreadable, his sharp features giving nothing away. Beside him was Ilara, his trusted lieutenant, her gaze scanning the horizon with a mixture of vigilance and calm. "The war may continue," Thalanor said, his voice smooth and composed. "But this victory has given us something invaluable: hope. The darkness has been pushed back, and in its place, we have forged something stronger." Ilara nodded in agreement, her eyes meeting Arik's. "The bond between our people has been tested in fire and proven true. We've built something here that no darkness can easily destroy." Arik felt a sense of gratitude welling up inside him as he looked at his companions. Over the course of the campaign, they had become more than just allies. They had become friends. Bromir and Thargrim, with their fierce loyalty and unyielding courage, had shown Arik the strength and resilience of the dwarven people. Thalanor and Ilara, with their wisdom and grace, had demonstrated the depth of elven knowledge and power. Together, they had faced the darkest of challenges and emerged victorious. But the aftermath of the battle was not without its hardships. The bodies of fallen soldiers lay scattered across the battlefield, a grim reminder of the sacrifice that had been required. Arik's heart ached as he thought of the lives lost, brave men, dwarves, and elves who had given everything for the cause. "We must honour our dead," Arik said solemnly. "They fought bravely, and their sacrifice will not be forgotten." Thalanor placed a hand on Arik's shoulder, a rare gesture of empathy. "We shall mourn them, but we must also remember that their sacrifice was not in vain. We must continue to build on what they have given us. A chance for peace." Bromir raised his warhammer in salute, "To the fallen and to the future they've given us." The others joined in, raising their weapons in a gesture of respect and unity. The dawn had broken over Blackthorn Keep, and with it came a new beginning. In the heart of Viridia, the capital city of the human kingdom, a grand celebration was held to honour the victory at Blackthorn Keep. The city, which had been filled with tension and fear in the days leading up to the battle, was now alive with joy and festivity. Banners adorned the streets, and the air was filled with the sound of music, laughter, and the clinking of goblets. The royal palace, a magnificent structure of marble and gold, was the centerpiece of the celebration. Its grand halls had been decorated with the colors and symbols of all three races: humans, dwarves, and elves. The alliance that had been forged in battle was now being celebrated in unity. King Arik, dressed in regal attire, stood at the entrance of the grand hall, welcoming guests as they arrived. His face, though still marked with the fatigue of war, was lit with a rare smile. This was a night of peace, a night to honour the bond that had been forged in the fires of battle. Bromir and Thargrim arrived together, their presence as commanding as ever. Bromir, ever the boisterous one, was already laughing heartily, a goblet of ale in his hand. Thargrim, though more reserved, had a small smile on his lips as he observed the festivities. "Now this is more like it," Bromir exclaimed, slapping Arik on the back. "A good fight followed by a good feast. What more could a dwarf ask for?" Arik chuckled, returning the gesture. "You've earned it, my friend. Tonight we celebrate our victory and the alliance that made it possible." Thargrim nodded, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "Aye, but let's not forget the work that lies ahead. Blackthorn Keep may be ours, but it needs fortifying if it's to stand against the dark forces in the future." "We'll discuss that soon," Arik agreed. "But tonight, let's enjoy this moment of peace." As the dwarves moved into the hall, Thalanor and Ilara arrived, their entrance marked by a quiet grace that turned heads. The elven lord, with his tall stature and dignified bearing, commanded respect with every step. Ilara, with her ethereal beauty and calm demeanour, was a vision of elegance. Arik greeted them with a deep bow, a gesture of respect that was reciprocated by Thalanor. "Lord Thalanor, Ilara, welcome. Your presence honours us." "The honour is ours, King Arik," Thalanor replied, his voice as smooth as ever. "This celebration is a testament to what we have achieved together. Let us hope that it is the first of many such victories." Ilara smiled warmly at Arik, her eyes reflecting a deep sense of kinship. "The bonds we've formed in battle are strong, but they must be nurtured in times of peace as well. Tonight we celebrate, and tomorrow we continue our work." As the guests mingled and the night progressed, the grand hall was filled with the sounds of merriment. Musicians played lively tunes, and tables were laden with food and drink from all corners of Eldoria. Dwarven ale flowed freely, and elven wine was sipped with appreciation. Arik found himself in conversation with Bromir and Thalanor, the three leaders reflecting on the events that had brought them to this moment. "It wasn't so long ago that our people were at odds," Arik mused. "Distrust and old grievances kept us apart. But now look at us, standing together, stronger than ever." Bromir grunted in agreement. "Aye, it took a war to bring us together, but sometimes that's what it takes to see what really matters." Thalanor, ever the philosopher, added, "Conflict can destroy, but it can also create. In this case, it has forged an alliance that I believe will endure." As the night wore on, the guests began to share stories of the battle, each tale more embellished than the last. Laughter echoed through the halls as warriors boasted of their feats, and friends toasted to their survival. Ilara found herself in a quiet corner of the hall, speaking with Thargrim. The two had developed a mutual respect for each other during the campaign, each recognizing the other's skill and dedication. "You fought well, Thargrim," Ilara said, her voice sincere. "Your leadership was instrumental in our victory." Thargrim shrugged modestly. "We all played our part, but I'll admit, I was impressed with your archers. They're as deadly as they are graceful." Ilara smiled, a rare expression of warmth crossing her features. "Thank you. We train hard, but it's the purpose that drives us. We fight to protect what we hold dear." Thargrim nodded thoughtfully. "Aye, that's something we can all understand." Across the hall, Arik stood with Bromir, watching the celebration unfold. The weight of leadership had been heavy on Arik's shoulders throughout the campaign, but tonight he allowed himself to feel a sense of contentment. "We did good, Bromir," Arik said quietly. "We've given our people something to believe in." Bromir, ever the pragmatist, raised his goblet in a toast, to victory and to the friendships forged in battle. May they last longer than the war. The two clinked their goblets together, sealing the sentiment. The night continued, a celebration of not just victory, but of the unity that had made it possible. The morning after the celebration, the Allied leaders convened in the war room of the royal palace. Maps and documents were spread across the table as they discussed the next steps in their campaign against the dark forces. The immediate focus was on Blackthorn Keep, the stronghold that had been both a symbol of the enemy's power and now a testament to the Alliance's strength. "The keep is in ruins," Thargrim stated bluntly, "but the foundations are solid. With the right resources, we can turn it into a fortress that will stand for generations." Arik nodded, his expression serious. "We need to make sure it's impenetrable. The dark forces will not give up easily, and we can't afford to lose the ground we've gained." Thalanor, who had been listening intently, spoke up. "The elves can provide the magical wards needed to protect the keep from future dark magic. Our mages are already working on the spells." Bromir grinned, a spark of excitement in his eyes. "And the dwarves will provide the engineering. We'll rebuild those walls stronger than ever, with defences that'll make any enemy think twice before attacking." Arik looked around the table at the gathered leaders, his friends and allies. Each had a role to play in the reconstruction, just as they had in the battle. "Let's not waste any time," Arik said decisively. "We'll need to send engineers, builders, and soldiers to Blackthorn Keep immediately. It will become a bastion of our alliance, a place where men, dwarves, and elves stand together." Ilara, who had been quietly considering the plans, added, "We should also ensure that Blackthorn Keep becomes more than just a military outpost. It can be a symbol of our unity, a place where our cultures coexist and strengthen each other." Arik smiled, nodding in agreement. "A fortress and a beacon of hope. That's exactly what we need." With the plans set in motion, work began on the reconstruction of Blackthorn Keep. Dwarven engineers and stonemasons, known for their unparalleled craftsmanship, led the effort to rebuild the walls and fortify the keep's defences. Massive stone blocks were hauled into place, and intricate defensive mechanisms were installed, including reinforced gates and hidden traps that would catch any would-be invaders by surprise. The elves, with their mastery of magic, wove powerful spells into the very fabric of the keep. Wards were placed around the perimeter to repel dark magic, and enchantments were cast to strengthen the walls against any assault. Elven architects also worked to design parts of the keep that would be harmonious with nature, creating spaces where their people could feel at home. The humans, for their part, provided the manpower and resources needed to sustain the massive construction effort. Soldiers patrolled the area, ensuring that no remnants of the dark forces could threaten the rebuilding process. Artisans and builders worked alongside the dwarves and elves, contributing their skills to the project. As the weeks turned into months, Blackthorn Keep began to rise from the ruins, transformed into a fortress of unmatched strength and beauty. The walls, now reinforced with dwarven stone and elven magic, stood tall and unyielding. Towers were constructed to house archers and sentries, providing a vantage point over the surrounding lands. Inside the keep, the chambers and halls were designed to reflect the unity of the Alliance. Dwarven craftsmanship could be seen in the sturdy, functional design of the fortifications, while elven artistry added elegance and grace to the architecture. Human practicality ensured that the keep was not only defensible, but also a livable space for those who would call it home. The main hall, where the leaders had once planned their assault on the keep, was now a grand chamber that served as a meeting place for the Allied leaders. The walls were adorned with banners representing each of the three races, and a large table stood in the centre, a symbol of the council that had brought them together. As the work neared completion, Arik, Bromir, Thargrim, Thalanor, and Ilara gathered at Blackthorn Keep to inspect the results. They walked through the halls, admiring the craftsmanship and the magic that had been woven into the structure. It's more than I could have hoped for, Arik said, his voice filled with pride. This keep is a symbol of our alliance, a reminder of what we can achieve when we stand together. Bromir nodded, his eyes gleaming with satisfaction. Aye, it's a fortress that'll stand the test of time, and if the dark forces try to take it back, they'll find more than just stone and steel waiting for them. Thalanor placed a hand on the stone wall, feeling the subtle hum of elven magic coursing through it. It is a place of power now, and it will be a place of peace. Our people can come here, not just to defend, but to learn from each other and grow stronger together. Ilara smiled softly, looking out over the surrounding lands from one of the towers. Blackthorn Keep is no longer a place of darkness. It's a place of light, a beacon of hope for all of Eldoria. As they stood together, the leaders of the Alliance felt a deep sense of accomplishment. They had not only won a great victory, but they had also built something lasting, a stronghold that would protect their people and symbolize the unity that had brought them together. Blackthorn Keep, once a fortress of evil, was now a bastion of hope. It stood as a testament to the strength of the Alliance, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, unity and determination could overcome any challenge. And as the sun set over the horizon, casting a golden glow over the keep, the leaders knew that they had laid the foundation for a future where men, dwarves, and elves could live in peace, side by side.
Through shattered gates, the allies pressed into the keep where shadows nest. A maze of darkness, corridors tight, where blood was shed in the heart of night. With swords aloft and hearts aligned, they fought beneath the waning sky. Elves, men, and dwarves side by side against the night, their stories tied. The leader charged, the sword aglow, through endless foes, their strength to show. The hammer fell with thunderous might. In the keep's core, they turned the tide. With swords aloft and hearts aligned, they fought beneath the waning sky. Elves, men, and dwarves side by side against the night, their stories tied. The leader charged with sword aglow, through endless foes, their strength to show. The hammer fell with thunderous might. In the keep's core, they turned the tide. With swords aloft and hearts aligned, they fought beneath the waning sky. Elves, men, and dwarves side by side against the night, their stories tied. The crystal pulsed with power grim, but a mighty strike dimmed its hymn. A crack, a shatter, darkness fled. The victory won where courage led. The dawn arose on broken stone, where once the dark's foul seed was sown. The keep lay ruined, shadows gone. The light of hope at last had drawn. With swords aloft and hearts aligned, they fought beneath the rising sky. Elves, men, and dwarves side by side, together now, their tale enshrined dark had cast its shade, the bond of warriors strong and true. In the light of dawn, their strength renewed.
If you're enjoying the story of Eldoria, don't forget to like and subscribe to stay updated.